There we go. Finally got it. Hey, y'all, what is going on? Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to our time together today. It's been an interesting week. I've been setting up for Saturday, and I've got a really great discussion to initiate with you guys on Saturday in regards to Atlantis. Saturday will be our last venture into Atlantis together, and so we will yeah, we'll finish up the Cassiopaean series basically on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to that. And after that, we're going to be finishing, believe it or not, the last day. We have one more day left of Zen. So we'll be studying Zen art the following Saturday, and that will be the finishing of that series. So kind of cool. The next two Saturdays we'll be finishing two pretty major series. The Zen series was an ongoing, very long series over 30 talks, and it'll be great to finish that package up. I've got a really good discussion of the last 30 or so pages of the book. It's on Zen art, so it's not really in depth as far as the psychological studies we've been doing, but it is in depth in regards to Zen art, and there's a lot to draw from that. So we'll finish the Zen series the following Saturday. And then the Saturday after that, I don't know. I've been talking to a few folks in email, talking about some options that we could take on. And then obviously before I get going on whatever I end up doing, I'll be asking you guys your opinions and thoughts and so forth. Looking forward to that. Hey, King, what's going on, man? It's good to see you. Fortune, I am so frustrated. I have tried to get you LinkedIn to connect you into the status, and I haven't been able to. The YouTube won't find you, and I don't know exactly why. So we got to get that figured out. So all good. Just want you to know I haven't forgotten about that, and I'm on it. Hey Gretchen, what's going on? It's good to see you. Yeah, it is weird, Fortune, because I've liked the channel. I've done everything. Everything I can to make it work, and it's just not recognizing it. So I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. We could always, excuse me, use this profile for you, but I know you don't want to do that. So we'll keep giving it a shot. What's going on, King? It's good to see you. Shan is in the house. He was the first one here today. It was great to see him. Let's go to some banners. We'll get some questions going, and we'll get a dialogue started. It's been a tough week for me. I'm going through quite a fire right now, and not sure where it's leading to, and it's extremely difficult. So would appreciate your thoughts and encouragement. Thankfully, I spoke with some of my family members this week, which was nice. I hadn't talked to a few of them for quite a while, and so this ordeal that is going on right now, it doesn't involve them directly, other than being family members. It's a family issue, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. That's one of the real troubles with the situation, is that it's mostly out of my control, and so I'm at the mercy of a lot of things. And speaking of which, I may as well, let's see here. I had an announcements list, and I'm not going to post it, but I'm going to read it to you guys, because this is also important, because what I'm going through right now affects our Zoom time. So I'm going to have to move our Zoom time back to 11 o'clock a.m. on Sundays. We usually meet at 1, but I'm having to move it back 2 hours to 11 o'clock because of how I am involved in this crisis that's going on. And so I have to. I don't have a choice. I didn't want to do that, but I don't have a choice. And it's not optional to put it on Saturday, and the only 2 days I have to choose from for this other responsibility is Saturday or Sunday, and since Saturday's out, all that's left is Sunday. So we'll be meeting on Sundays at 11 o'clock for probably the rest of August, and then possibly in September we'll move it back to 1 o'clock. I apologize for the schedule change. I can't avoid it. I can't, there's nothing I can do to avoid it, so we have to move our Zoom time to 11 o'clock. So I just wanted you guys to know that that was coming, and that starts this coming Sunday. Uh, so there won't be any break. Okay, so let's look at some questions from the banners, and then if you guys want, I can address some questions you have from this last Saturday. The show has gone really well. It's been seen by a lot of people, and that's really great to see. It seems that the subject of Atlantis is a subject that a lot of people are curious about. There's a real there's a real connection, I think, that a lot of people don't realize right in the writings of Plato. And I'm going to be elucidating that and what its implications are when you realize what Plato was saying when he talked about Atlantis. And I think it's really going to connect you guys in a way that maybe you've never connected with Atlantis before. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, taking a quick perusal. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome. You're welcome, Les. I'm I'm not solid, but I'm maintaining. I could break out into tears at any moment, so I'm wondering what questions are going to be asked, because if I get asked a question that triggers me, I will lose it. But for right now, I'm holding steady. I'm holding steady. It's not easier. It's not easy. Let's go to banners. Okay. So to start here, is that why certain groups said in the past that they would eliminate the European gene? So I'll give you guys a hint as to what's coming Saturday. There was an entire plot that was underway right before the Younger Dryas. And I actually found a little clip I'm going to read to you guys on Saturday, but there was a whole scenario that was going down. And from what I am gathering, the Younger Dryas cataclysm it was a direct action to stop, to immediately stop what had just been initiated from the people of Atlantis. And secondly, I think that the limited scope of human types that are listed by the Cassiopaeans as you guys know, the Kantekians, the Native American, and the Aborigine. And they basically put three groups of people as Atlanteans. But see, here's the rub. When you look at Atlantis was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I'm going to show all this to you guys on Saturday. And they really were an isolated group out there in the Atlantic. They were about 1,000 miles from Spain, the coast of Spain. And the island itself was quite large, on the order of about 200 miles wide by about 300 miles long. Now, not terribly huge, but plenty large enough to build an empire, but in my opinion, too small to have a competing situation, sort of like what goes on, or what went on back in the day, between Scotland and England, whereby little Scotland, as much as we love the Scots, there's strength in numbers, and Europe just simply has more numbers. And so therefore, unfortunately, Scotland was at the mercy of just more people than they could defend themselves with. Now keep that in mind. And so Scotland now, and to this day, is under the crown. And there's not a Scottish individual out there that wants that, but yet that's the case. Now follow now. Here you have an island. Think about this now. You have an island of people, the Kantekians, and then you have these other two groups that are on the sort of the outer perimeter of this landmass. Now, does it make sense to you that could continue on with that kind of tension between sort of this alien species that's moved in and then the natural species that are here. And you can see, but then when you stick that many people on that small of an island out in the middle of the Atlantic and they don't get along and they hate each other, which is what I think that the case would be, that's not a long-term option. And if Atlantis and the Atlanteans are attacking, this is the big hint on Saturday, first Saturday, are attacking Europe, right? There's no way on Atlantis they're having like some kind of good thing going between these two native races and this alien species that's a different color skin, different appearance and everything. They look like humans, but they're a totally different build, a totally different appearance that's totally foreign to these natural creatures that have been on this planet, full of melanin. And so there was this whole plot, and it's mentioned right there in Plato's work. There was this whole plot that the Atlanteans were in the midst of attacking Europe, the Mediterranean. And the legacy of Rome, of this great fighting warrior force that was centralized in the Mediterranean, defeated against all odds this Atlantean force that was attacking from the coast and coming in from North Africa and from Europe, moving into the Levantine Mediterranean area of the planet to take it over. And so, yes, the answer to your question, Harry Parrott, yes. According to Plato and his sources, there was an effort to overrun and take over the world. Now follow the logic here. Younger Dryas hits, and for hundreds of years, it's wiped out. All of Atlantis is now gone, and the lower portion of Europe and into the Mediterranean, there's flooding because the seas have risen 450 feet from the Younger Dryas. And so you have a cleaning out of all the coastal societies. And if you think about it, where are societies going to initiate their growth? Where? Practical, logical reasoning. Think about it. Coastlines. On the coast. That offers you all the bounty of the sea, and it offers you the bounty of the land, because these are hunter-gatherer tribes. Folks, we're going back in time here. And so when the Younger Dryas hit, I mean, all your coastal cities worldwide, gone. Gone. If you were on the coast in 10,000 BC, 11,000 BC, 12,000 BC, you didn't exist in the span of a day. You are hundreds of feet underground or underwater in the span of 24 hours. And the vast majority of cultures were on the coast. You would have to have one heck of a lake or one heck of a stream or something to offer you the bounty of water if you're a hunter-gatherer society. That's why they're all set up along rivers and lakes and the ocean. So it seems that, and the way Plato talks about it, is that this Atlantean force was unbelievably powerful. And basically the Proto-Europeans, the Proto-Romans, 9,000 years before Rome and Greece, there's this legend of this group that are in the Mediterranean that fight off the invaders from Atlantis. And you know what's so uncanny is that when Solon went to talk to the Egyptian priests, the Egyptian priests told Solon that basically Greek history is for children. That's what the Egyptian scholars told this great Greek scholar, Solon, that basically the history that the Greeks were using for understanding their source was completely bunk. How about them apples? And that and when you read the transcripts of when he came back from Egypt, I mean, the Greek scholars are like, please tell us, please tell us, please tell us what they said. In other words, it basically admitting there's a bigger story here to be told. And so Harry Parrott, I think that all that has come about since the Younger Dryas has been a continuation. Are you ready for this? A continuation of that initial invasion. I do. And this white supremacist ruling force out of Atlantis, you are seeing the reinitiation back when they built the Illuminati, when they built and destroyed the tribes on the Levant, when the Canaanites, which in my opinion are these former Aryan Atlantean peoples, we know, and it even says in the Kantekian, Cassiopaean transcripts, that they had already moved in to this area and were attacking. And so it's an incredibly elucidating story. It's an incredibly elucidating story. Let's see if you guys have any comments, by the way. Hang on. Okay. Here. What's up, High Verbal? Thanks for buying my book, buddy. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for doing that. Chuck, how does the Cassiopaean position on Atlantis from channeled information compared to the Atlantean dreams of the sleeping prophet Edgar Sayce, who had a lot to say about Atlantis? And I'll tell you something verbal. I think that Atlantis is an enormous history that was every bit as complex as what we're living in now. And I think that they were super ultra high tech. And the reason why there are all these people who are able to channel and have lucid dreams about it is because it played such a major role. It laid out the entire history of the Luciferians. If you hear what I just said, the Luciferians, in my opinion, are ancient souls from Atlantis that were full STS, because Atlantis had completely abandoned STO. And this is another thing I'll talk about Saturday. And that in my opinion, that there were STO groups that knew pyramid technology, that knew high electromagnetic technology, and they were using that to develop STO. And you can see that in alchemy. You can see that in the ancient traditions that come out of a past which even the scholars now don't know where it came from, because all of that has been hidden away, burned away by the church. And I think they've got the history. I think the church has the entire history of Atlantis. I do. And I think that the work after Younger Dryas was the work of the Atlanteans in the form of the Khazarian mafia, reforming to do what they initially initiated to do from Atlantis, and that is to take over the world. Here's my big thesis I'll tell you guys on Saturday. My big thesis is that Atlanteans had already planned to take over the planet. The Younger Dryas put a stop to it. And in my opinion, there's spiritual reasons for that. But the bottom line is that they had initiated this. And what happened post Younger Dryas was the reinitiation of that attack to take over the world. And if you think about it, High Verbal, they were successful. They were successful, meaning the Atlanteans. Because look at our world right now. Our world is a psychosomatic bonfire. And it is like that because of this high-powered psychic energy that comes out of this Kantekian group. And I think that the world was really on its way to going STO, follow now, going STO. And the Kantekians in Atlantis were kind of, in my opinion, the last opportunity to turn the world STS. And when they failed to defeat the Proto-Europeans in the Mediterranean 12,000 years ago, that failure could not be known. And they wiped out the entire race and restarted. That's what I think. Because when they were defeated, in my opinion, that would have sent us on an entirely different trajectory. Think about it now. An entirely different trajectory of STO. If the Proto-Europeans had been able to continue in their victory, meaning continue in the defeat of Atlantis. And so they had to wipe out the 4D STS, had to wipe out Atlantis, because they had to wipe out all the populations that had built in their technology. And I think there was an outbreak of this pyramid technology going on at that time. And by raising the ocean 450 feet, and think about it, when that first wave went through, you're looking at 1,000, 2,000 feet of surge, right? So all of the long-term decay that you see on the pyramids at Giza, and all the sand, and all the well, it looks like it's been flooded, and that all of the silt came in. And when you look, and when they go into these Egyptian pyramids, it looks like silt that's settled down, and you see the lines of water lines as the water receded. And you can see those lines on the Sphinx. And I mean, obviously that's more than one flood, but you can see the lines, and you could see, oh, this was flooded. This would have killed everybody. You wiped out the Mediterranean, Spain, Europe, Greece, wiped out. I'll show you the maps. I got maps I'm going to show you guys on Saturday. And you guys are going to, it's what it's going to do. It's going to open up an entirely different door of thought for you. You're no longer going to be limited to the 9,000 year plot that you've been handed. So high verbal, yeah, I think that all of these people, including this Edgar Sayce guy, are all tied into this theory of Atlantis. And I think we can draw information from these people. I think that's important. I think that's important. Yeah. Yeah. It is telling. And I think that all of the Giza Plateau, all of those areas were flooded. Not as badly as North America. I think North America was a complete wipeout, and I'll show you that on Saturday. But North America is an F story. An F story. Every single society, every Native American society that existed on North America, I would say 99.9 of them all died, all perished. Maybe somewhere up at Machu Picchu, and that was high enough away from the waters to escape the flood. But like, what do you eat? There's only so much vegetation you can grow. How much of a society can you sustain in a place like Machu Picchu with no meat, with no animals to hunt? So it's really a story of human crisis and our strength to overcome the odds. Casey, gotcha. Thank you. Edward Casey, gotcha. And you know what, King? It's so amazing that you brought up the orphan trains. Now, you guys are nailing exactly this is exactly where I went in my study this week. And so you guys know how I am with all the orphan stuff. And I now am convinced that the orphans are replanting of races, of human people in areas that have been wiped out. And I think they did that exact same thing after Atlantis. And I think they put this Kantekian, Khazarian, Aryan, white supremacy genome into the phenotypes of people that they planted in the Levant and in the Caucasus Mountains. The Cassiopaeans specifically denote North Africa, the Levant, the Caucasus Mountains as the central positions that they placed, that they came and to populate this area. Now remember, this would have been 10,000 years ago. And it is those people, and I am convinced of this, it is those people that have been the instigators of human history and all the war and fighting that prevailed from the Stone Age through the Iron Age on into Rome, the Catholic Church, and on into our time now, has all been the seeds of people that were planted on the planet in that area of the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Levant, Southern Europe, the Caucasus Mountains. And I think that was the setup, the genetic setup for the groups, the tribes of people in that area. And this was the counterplay of the STS losing the Atlantean versus Proto-European people. And I think that they have wanted to hide that because it renders the truth. And the truth is that STO ultimately is a stronger, higher resonant force than STS. STS cannot sustain. It has to cheat. It has to do things to force its way, its will, because no humane individual, a person with any sense of humanness, right, will be okay with harming others for one's own power, usurping others for one's own gain. And any true, authentic human being is going to lean in the direction of helping and loving others because we're inherently good. This is one of the lessons that religion teaches people, is that people are inherently bad. And that's a psyop. And lo and behold, it comes out of the Levant. And I think that it's been both a psychological and a physiological game, competition between STO and STS. And so knowing Atlantis, understanding the orphan trains, like you just mentioned, King, understanding that there is this alien race that's been genetically manipulating us and attempting to control us, right? Knowing this frees you. It frees you. So yeah, this is good. This is good. This is good dialogue. Okay. So I think, in my opinion, that they are part of those original groups, as the Cassiopaeans suggest. And I don't think, let's look at Australia, where we find a lot of the Australian, obviously, Aborigines who claim that that is their source. I'm wondering, now follow this now, Australia is on the other side of this flood. So the wake that would have been coming out from the far north of the planet, by the time it got down to Australia, really what you're getting is an increase in your ocean height. So you're not getting this cataclysmic wake that's hitting you. You're getting the rapidly raising ocean. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that there were Aborigines thriving in Australia before 12,000 years ago as a part of the populating of the planet. I think that all the planet was populated with all kinds of genetic alterations by those that have been running things. And then you seed people on certain areas, and then they grow into societies. It's their growth into society, their growth into awareness that brings about the greater loosh. That's why you don't see them just keeping people in cages and not ever allowing any freedom. You must have freedom to generate the energy, the spiritual energy that they want to eat.
So you have to have societies that are growing and flourishing on your surface in order to be generating the most authentic and most powerful loosh. Because think about it, if you're locked in a cage, you're locked underground, let's say, just how much expansion, how much awareness are you generating? Which that awareness, that expansion is what generates your greater energy, generates your potential. And that creates spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is loosh. So what the controllers do is they direct your spiritual energy into negative with lies like you're born dirty or something. And this directs your energy in an antithetical way. And so if you think about it, you would have needed, as a loosh farm, which the earth is, you would have needed various groups of people all over the planet that are all growing societies. You just have to contain their growth. This is the whole trick of the planet. You want them to grow, but you want to contain that growth, because if they grow too much in awareness, they're going to figure out the plot. So the STS have to walk this very fine line of having a growing society that's generating greater and greater quality loosh, but at the same time not growing too quickly or not growing in the correct path. Fine if they want to grow into a consciousness that has nothing to do with reality. That's fine, they're still growing. What you don't want is for them to be growing in actual truth, in actual true expansion, in the truth of who they are, which is found, as you guys know, in alchemy, these ancient traditions. And so I think that groups like the Aborigines were just these human beings that were growing and forming societies in Australia. And this ruling force, just like it does now, was just abducting humans for thousands of years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, as humans continue to grow, because it's a farm. So I think the Aborigines were there. And the flood came, the Younger Dryas came, and they had an enormous, obviously, the seas rose, but you would have had time, as those seas are coming in, as a society, to move inland, as the Aborigines did on Australia. So and again, folks, this was just 10,000 years ago that this all went down. And so I think that, yeah, the Aborigines are correct when they talk about how they've been there and they were there before the flood. They've been there forever, or for the last 39,000 years, because they're the original seeding. They're one of the original seeds, as you guys know. The Aborigines are one of the three races of people that the Cassiopaeans claim existed at the time of Atlantis. Isn't this stuff fascinating? I find this stuff fascinating. I find this absolutely fascinating. Okay. Hello, anti-involution. So I'm looking for all caps if you guys got any. So, in my opinion, now here's a wild one. Let's see. No Limit Mer. Nice. So the Anunnaki, in my opinion, come into the scene right after the Younger Dryas. And the nations of the planet that have all been wiped out. You guys got to understand that world flood wiped out the vast majority of the populated societies on this planet. And the ones that were left were severely harmed because the land is flooded. Okay? So after post-Younger Dryas, you have this period of time of centuries where there's basically, 99% less people on the planet than before the Younger Dryas, literally than the year before. So in my opinion, the Anunnaki, the Lizzies, the Orion Consortium, all discussed what are we going to release onto the planet as the next phase. How do we set up the planet so that it will be in as conducive a means as we want for loosh generation? And so they set it up as a war society, as basically cultures different. This is, again, feeds into my theory that you generate genetics of people that look slightly different, have slightly different colors than each other. And then you pack all these people that have these differences and have low consciousness, you pack them together. And because they're low consciousness, they've all been compromised. We've all been compromised. There's no data. This is basically Stone Age, right? You are fostering infighting. You're fostering fighting amongst these different looking, these different talking, these different appearing and behaving people. And so you're setting up the whole world as war culture. And I think the Anunnaki worked with the Orion collective consortium that are running the loosh farms of this planetary system, and they were a part of the decisions that were made as to how to generate as much loosh as possible. And then it is my opinion that the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, came to Earth to rule these societies that they had planted. You follow? So you put the people, the seeds of the society. We'll just take the Levant, the South Europe, all these areas that are now rebuilding and the water is receding, and now you're going to move in again, right? You seed all these with specific groups of people, and then you instigate infighting, you instigate hate, and then you just build war culture. You build societies that destroy each other. And if you look at our history, that's exactly what's happened. You've had basically glorified tribes that generated enough technology or people to be able to defeat the other smaller tribes. And it's like a Walmart moving into a local city. It then begins to cannibalize all the locals, all the local businesses it eats. And so you have a society like Babylon. It cannibalizes anything that's smaller than it. It absorbs it into its system or destroys it. And this is how you would set up a scenario on this planet to have one ruling agency. Get all of the people to infight and then bring in a ruling authority. And in the old days, it was the Anunnaki and the giants. And they attempted to rule people through force. And what was eventually realized is you cannot have an emerging consciousness and contain that with brute force. You can't contain a highly conscious mind with brute force. The mind is free. That's why you have those war heroes that are locked in the POWs that are locked away, but they have these amazing spiritual experiences and epiphanies and amazing moments of realization in the midst of their imprisonment. We've read countless stories about this. So what was realized is you cannot control a society like Rome did with brute force. You end up killing the society to control them because people die for their faith, for their beliefs. So you have to attack their mind. You have to attack the mind. And this was the shift of Rome becoming the Catholic Church. They moved from a physiological threat to a spiritual, mental threat. That was the change at 325. So they moved from threatening you physically to threatening you in your own mind. And if you think about that, that's a 24/7 threat. Like, that's a much better game plan to convert the society by implanting lies in their heads. Now you're taking all the force that they carry, and now you're directing that force towards the lie that they believe. And right there, you have compromised, you've jeopardized that person's potential. Do you see? Because you've captured their mind. So you don't need to rule them by force. You got their head. You got them in the head here. So you don't got to put any force on them. They'll do it themselves. They'll fight to stay a sinner. They'll fight for whatever God you hand them, right? They'll fight for whatever movement you convince them of. And this is how you get people's authentic power, and you direct it into the means of the group. That's how you do it. You capture their mind. And so the Anunnaki They came to decide and infiltrate the societies. They attempted to rule them, and it worked for quite a while. But eventually, your society grows and grows and grows. And you have what happened in Atlantis happen here. And that's why you're beginning to see the kind of things and threats that you're seeing now. Because a society that refuses to be controlled must be threatened in order to bring them back into control. And that's why you guys have seen, and I've heard, the never-ending plot of World War III, the never-ending plot of we're all doomed, everything's going to die, everyone's going to die in war, and that's the end game. And you get enough people to believe that, they actually will carry that out for you, because the world becomes what you believe. And if you have an entire society of people that are essentially waiting for the tribulation, when the tribulation finally comes about, they're game, because they've been waiting for it. Mind control. And that was the role of the Anunnaki, in my opinion. And they ruled for a while as giants. And we see the buildings of those giants. And it worked for a while. But it's not going to keep working long term, because you cannot hold back the human spirit. The STO force is more powerful, because it's a self-becoming force, not a consuming force. A consuming force is always depleting itself and depleting others. You're working on the basics of usurpation, which ends in emptiness. If my motivation is theft, if my motivation is harm, if my motivation is usurpation, it ends in emptiness. It's a dead end. That's why STS cannot transcend. It can't. It cannot go past 4D, because it is a consuming, self-consuming enterprise. And this is why STO can. All right, let's get to the questions. I'm going to the bottom now. What do we got here? Hi, Amber. Hi, Chuck. Do you think indigenous people revered women unity figures? Yeah, we in the old times, the female was basically the goddess of the culture. And the whole system was lined up in what was called partnership cultures. Terence McKenna spent many a lecture talking about this. Fertility and creation versus the Abraham. Yeah, exactly. Patriarchal versus matriarchal. The world was matriarchal. It was based on the fundamental principles of nature, which is love, compassion, water, giving, and so forth. And it was the Abrahamic movement, the male dominant movement, remember, that was birthed in the Levant. You see, it's birthed in the Levant. And the Levant has been the center of controversy and conflict since 9000 BC. The Levant, the Mediterranean, South Europe, North Africa. Think about it. And those are male-dominant societies. Before that were female-dominant societies. Societies based on partnership. Societies based on love, right? And there was a movement of societies based on power and force, meaning physiological power, killing, vampirism, taking over. And that all went down in our history, basically during the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, is when these societies fought it out. And eventually, the STO societies lost out to the STS. Follow? Just like in earlier where the STO beat the Atlanteans. This time here, what happened, and you could see how their plan worked, it was the male-dominant forces that ended up taking over the Levant. That's Babylon. That's Babylon. That's Egypt. That's the Catholic Church. That's the Jesuits, right? These are all male-dominant, right? And you cannot guide through domination and force. You guide through fostering, through female principles. You cannot guide a society in the STO through female principles. The STS, which is what societies comes. Let me start again. You can only foster an STO society under female type of metaphors. You're not going to foster a humane society under male dominant ideals, because a person is fostered into love and compassion. You cannot demand a person to be compassionate and loving. That is something that has to come out of them. You can't demand it. That's why it's foolish to ask someone to love you. It doesn't come through permission. Okay? All understanding comes through permission in male-dominant societies. And so the ancient societies were female-dominant, small tribal groups that were family-oriented. And as population grew, that's when your male-dominant forces begin to move in. Because there's a psychic center that has to be elucidated and brought forward to counter the STS intendants. And so if you have an entire society that is built on STS ideals, the compassionate love will not be fostered from the mind. It will stay latent. And so societies that are male dominant foster vampires, monsters, warriors, fighters, whereas your female dominant fosters connectivity, that we gain power together through connecting together. We gain a greater power than any one isolated person. This is your beginning of understanding the psychology differences between STO and STS. And STO gains their power through the connection and working with and loving others. The STS goes the other direction. It's complete selfism. It's not partnership oriented. And so it's a different type of pronounced power that eventually eats itself alive. That doesn't happen with your female matriarchal ideals. It's a big story. It's a big story. I love you, Max. I love you, buddy. It's good to see you. Yes, Fortune, goddesses. The Goddesses book from Campbell will help you understand this. The Goddesses book helps you understand the metaphors of the female, and then how, when you integrate these female-oriented ideals, resonations, right? This is how you foster peace, foster love, foster compassion into your life by knowing these metaphors and then living them. It's not a duty, it's a realization. And when you read books that are rich in metaphor, you realize the truth. It comes to you through the metaphor because truth is fostered out. It's not told. It's fostered out of your heart. And studying metaphors is a great way to coax the heart, because the heart doesn't work on the word plane. The heart works on the identity plane. And the identity plane has nothing to do with words and everything to do with connection. You see, this is all female-oriented stuff. And so that's why it's so important to find true understanding of leadership, true understanding of compassion for others, true understanding and connection for friendships and family. These all come through female goddess principles. This is why the Western religions, which are male dominant, they try to beat obedience into the person, right? They're trying to get that person to obey through threat. You're going to get your head pounded, friend, if you disobey God. That doesn't foster obedience. You see? That fosters a bot. That fosters a non-thinking individual. In order to coax love and obedience out of someone, right? This has to be fostered through metaphors, through deeper principles. When you try and bring a person and make them moral through force, do you see the oxymoron in that? If I try to beat into submission I try to beat a person into morality, a moral state, by beating the hell out of them, do you see how that doesn't work? You have to use a female principle to foster out, to encourage, to coax out of them the humaneness, the love that's in them, right? That's why rehabilitation doesn't center on beating a person down. It centers on coaxing a person to open. This is how you rehabilitate them. Makes sense? So yeah, goddesses is really important on that stuff. It's a book on goddesses. I'll look it up. I can't remember the name of it. It's been years since I read it. Let's see, Joseph Campbell. The Goddess. It's called Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine. And it's kind of a rust-colored book with 4 different ladies on the cover. And it's called Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine. It should get a Pulitzer. Honestly, the book should get a Pulitzer. Probably one of the fastest reads books I've ever read in my life was that book. Because this was Campbell writing in the prime of his life. He had already written a compendium of books. And so this was one of his final books. And it is liquid enlightenment. It is incredible. It is an incredible book. But you guys should check it out. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the biggest misnomers ever, is that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, is the biggest lie that has ever been written. The fear of the Lord is not the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of control. And I've said that in my book, and I've said that to you guys many times. That's why, you see right there, that's an STS principle attempting to foster the God in you, or to your awareness to God, you see? And you can't foster awareness by saying to someone, hey pal, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Pal, better get your priorities in straight, buddy. You're not fostering love at that point. You're fostering just flat, non-thinking obedience. And we came here to disobey. So you can begin to see some real problems when you begin to try and foster the idea of God out of someone, and the initiation is the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's the beginning of being captured and brainwashed. It's the completely wrong approach to understanding God. You will never, ever know the true sense of God if your approach is fear. Craziness. That's one of the hard lessons I had to learn when I left Christianity. Yeah, right there with you, Gretchen. I detest it. It is such an incredible lie. It is such a lie. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And this is where most believers don't understand that the love in the Bible is conditional. Because they're always talking about, the Christian is always saying constantly, God's love is unconditional. The love that Jesus offers is unconditional. No, it's not. It's under the condition that you believe correctly. You don't get to access God's grace unless you believe correctly. That's called a condition. You must condition your understanding of yourself and the world through the words of this book. And you guys know a book cannot tell you the world or yourself any more than an autobiography can tell a person about you. Ultimately, to know you, they must interact with you and have relationships with you. And so the whole approach is completely the ox or the cart before the ox. Because love isn't a choice. It's like that verse that says you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Okay? You must love. You have to love. You're required to love, whatever the case may be. Love isn't a choice. I can't choose to love someone. I love them or I don't, and I don't. It's faith. It's faith. You see, and when you force choice, when it comes to spirituality, can you see the short-sightedness of that? Can you see the small world that conditional love fosters? Honestly, can you see how small the world becomes when it must fit into the beliefs of a specific demand? Do you see how you shrink the world? And it's this kind of very practical psychology that a person living in fear of the Lord never realizes, because they're living in fear of the Lord, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The cart is before the ox. It's backwards, because love is the initiator. How about them apples? Love, which you don't know the source of and you could never tell me what it is exactly, you just know it's there, that is your motivating factor. And I do not motivate love through patriarchal ideals, through fear, through threats of hell, threats of damnation. I am not fostering understanding. I am not fostering the innate. When I put these demands, belief demands, conditions on the individual. And once you realize that the love the Bible is offering is conditional, right there you know there's no love there. Because love is outside of condition. There's nothing my kids or my wife could ever do that would break the love that I have for them. I cannot choose to stop that. That love will be there. A lot of times that happens, I hear, with people who get divorces who didn't want a divorce. They still love that individual. And even though they have separated and broken up and it's no longer there, that person, it doesn't matter how much they think about it. They still love that individual. You lose a child in a car accident. You never stop loving that child. You can't stop loving. You'll be crying about the loss of that child when you're 99. Because that love doesn't stop. You can't cut it off. You can't choose to start it. You can't choose to stop it. And so when you're working with a Bible, a manuscript that is toying with love like this, saying you have to love your neighbor, you must love the Lord your God, you must fear the Lord because that's the beginning of wisdom. Do you see how you're anti-love the entire scenario? You're not fostering, helping, encouraging love at all. You're encouraging fear. You're encouraging obedience. You're encouraging not thinking for yourself. You're encouraging falling in line, and you didn't come here for any of that. You didn't come here to get in line. You didn't come here to obey. You didn't come here to follow orders. You see, and King and Ginger, you guys understand completely these deeper concepts. But you see, a person who is unaware, namely the Christian, they can't see these concepts because they're inside the religion. They're not free. They're inside condition. And they believe it's non-conditioned. They believe it's unconditional, and it's not. The love of the West is not unconditional. The love of the Western religion, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, is conditional. One of the biggest connections I ever made to free myself. That is correct, Shan. Let's listen to this here. What you got, Gretchen? Yep, my ex is still the father of our daughter, and I loved him as another true human and visited him when he passed. Exactly. You can't stop love. You can't start love. Remember that always. You cannot start it. You cannot stop it. You can ignore it. You can run from it. You can deny it all you want, but it's initiation when you feel it, when it's there. You cannot stop that. You cannot cut that off. You don't even know where it came from. This is precise. I've lived this in my life. This is precisely what happened when I met my wife, Jenny. After the one date, we went on our first date, I fell in love with her. I've been in love with her ever since. Cannot stop it. Love her with all I am. And I didn't choose that because I had dated a lot of gals before Jenny. I didn't choose that night. But when we went out that night, and we still remember the dinner we had together, when we went out that night, it was, this is it. I love this girl. I didn't know if I was going to marry her or not, but I loved her. I loved her. And I didn't start that. I didn't try. I didn't force that. She didn't convince me of something. It was nothing that she said. It was nothing that she did. It was electromagnetic, instantaneous connection. a bond that has never broken since our first date. That's to me, that's the experience. In my opinion, that's true love. To me, that's true love. No mind involved. I didn't choose anything. It happened to me. I woke up the next day filled with her in my mind, filling my mind constantly. I didn't do that. I didn't wake up thinking, okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and be thinking about Jenny. Next week, when we can't go out, or I'm going to be missing Jenny. None of that. I just experienced what it was like in life while I was dating her, because we broke up a number of times. The pain and suffering that occurred every single time we broke up, because we had a really tumultuous relationship. We were in high school. We were high schoolers. We were kids. I was 17. She was 16. Okay? So we broke up and got together a bunch of times. But I tell you, every single time that we broke up, it was like someone had taken my heart out of my chest and it was just standing there stomping on it. Stomping. The pain was, you cannot imagine the pain. And that drove me back. It wasn't a choice. I was filled with so much pain by not being able to express and share love with Jenny that it drove me back. I kept going back because I couldn't stop this thing inside my heart. To me, that's true love. That's true love. You can't stop it. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to submit. Really. You have to risk and give yourself away. And by doing that, by giving yourself away in that kind of experience, this is when you reach a different level of awareness spiritually than you would have had you remained single. By having that partner, and I'm not saying that this is the e-ticket, I'm just saying that accesses you a different spiritual experience than being alone, than being by yourself. And there are aspects of that are intangible and beautiful that you can only experience by staying in that relationship for life. It's incredible. So yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I'm sure you do, Max. I'm sure you do. And that will never stop. This is one of the tragedies of life, is that when we lose someone that we love, it never goes away. You never fully recover. You just learn to deal with it. You just learn to live life without them, but you never fully recover. That's a permanent loss, in my opinion. Like if Jenny were to die, there's no recovery on the horizon for me. I'll learn to accept it. I'll learn, and if I died, she would have to learn to accept it and move on. But there's no recovery. You're never going to get past it. You'll be crying at the grave every year till you die. That's love. That's true love. And that's why it's so risky, because once that births inside of you and you begin to foster and walk with that for a while and have that attachment with someone, that's it. Your life is over. Your old life is over. You'll never be the same again because you have attached. You've connected. In a good way, not a negative way, in a good way. In a good way. And it's going to be very painful because nature's merciless if you ever lose that. If they die, if something happens, if they go away, they leave you, whatever. Big time. Okay. Oh, this is brilliant, Daniel. What's this? My wife and I met 16 years old, too. That's fantastic. Broke up but got back together now. We have 3 beautiful... Brilliant! Daniel, you and I share in a lot of character traits, life experiences, don't we? I have 2 kids. You have 3. That's nice. And you met your wife, yeah, when you were very young. It's very rare for that kind of thing to work out, because the biological and hormonal changes that are going on in men and women as they mature from adolescence into adulthood, between sort of that 12 to 15 years old until about 25, when all your hormones and chemicals are balancing. I mean, that maintaining a relationship during those changes is it doesn't always work out, understandably so. But yeah, that's beautiful that you've been together since you were 16. That's fantastic. There's nothing like it. It's one of the things that I always tell Jenny, or I often tell her when I kiss her, is that I love it that I'm still kissing my high school sweetheart. It feels really good. Yeah, I think that is the experience. I think that's experience that deepens you. I think if the love is one-sided and it's not reciprocated back,
I think then it's an internal depth perception that is opened because you feel that love for that other, but you can't express it. They're either not there or they left you or whatever the case may be. You can't allow, and you'll understand this, Troy. You can't allow, or you can't allow that love to flow. You can't express it to that person. And so I think that causes an inward seeking. I think that a lot of like the way a person that loses a spouse or child that they loved, obviously, and they lose that partner, that companion, that child, they'll always feel that love, but it's always going to be turning back inward because they're gone. That individual's gone. And so there's an inward turning that I think is beautiful for the person that loses love or is one-sided. I think there's a lot to be found there. I think that improves sensitivity, Troy. I think that improves perception when that is coming out of you and it doesn't have a means of moving into that other individual. That's a great question. Okay. Yeah, Carlos Castaneda. I've read some of his stuff. Outstanding work. A real different take on life. I love his take of the warrior, in that the individual is, there's a great quote from him. There isn't time for decisions, there's only time for acting, something like that. He has some great insights, and his work in, I believe it was South America, is extremely helpful. He worked with a shaman and has some really great concepts. If you ever have the chance to read just a little bit about Carlos Castaneda, I've actually quoted him in some of my older videos because some of his thoughts, that was weird, some of his statements are very thought-provoking. Okay, continuing now. Let's go to the all caps. Hypatia. Hi, Mythological Muse. So Hypatia was the head librarian of Alexandria, and she was the last female scholar as the world was becoming more and more male dominant. And she was a scholar that was in charge of the library at Alexandria as well as others. In case you guys didn't know this, there was a whole entourage of libraries and mystery schools that were going on around the time of Greece, and a little bit earlier, a little bit later, that spoke and taught the way of alchemy, sacred geometry, hermeticism. And these secret knowledges, Hypatia was a master of. She was considered the greatest scholar of her time. Now, at that time, right at the end of the, what would that be, 3rd, 4th, 5th century, the church was moving in. Remember, in 325 AD, the church made religion law. And so if you didn't follow the orders of the Roman Catholic Church, you were killed or undermined. And so Hypatia presented a conflict, a direct energy that didn't align with theology. Hypatia was oriented to a sacred geometry and the knowledge of the ancients. The Bible teaches spirituality through obedience and law. And so you have a dichotomy between Hypatia and the motivations of the church. And the Library of Alexandria and these mystery school teachings did not coincide. It didn't gel with the teachings of the church because the Roman Catholic Church saw themselves and appointed themselves as the final authority. Their say goes. So anything or anyone, and imagine this is in the Mediterranean, that doesn't go along with the ways of the church, you're out. You're done. And so Hypatia was a threat because she was knowledgeable in these ancient teachings that far exceed any kind of crap that's coming out of the Bible. These are ancient teachings that are based on knowledge that is far beyond words in a book,
far beyond ideas of God. She was on an entirely higher plane. And that's so often why a person who is well trained in psychology can shut down basically any Christian or Islamist or Jew, because through psychology you can render the inefficiency and dehumanness, non-humanness of Western religion. And Hypatia was that type. She understood the history, she understood the psychology. So when you talk to someone who is versed in Western theology, you can shut them down with really good psychology, which is what we do all the time on Nature Creature. Practical thinking, pattern finding and pattern forming, and just recognizing the world from a psychological position, because the Christian is a child when it comes to spiritual psychology. They don't understand that world. And so Hypatia, she was a leader in this knowledge and presented a terminal threat to religion. And so it was Christian zealots that skinned her alive with oyster shells. And this is recorded in 6 different manuscripts from witnesses that saw this. These were people who claimed Christ. This is long after the crucifixion. The church is established. The church has their law. And these are men who claimed to be devout Christians that skinned Hypatia alive. They took the oyster shells and they peeled off all of her skin. This is beginning to help you understand how any kind of religion that considers itself the final authority, you can know right there, it's madness. It's madness. Any kind of belief system that says we're the final word of God, we're the final authority, we have the final laws, our theology's right and everybody else is wrong, that's when you know you're dealing with a cult. You're dealing with anti-humane principles, which is the teachings of Western religion. Anti-humane. And so Hypatia was the last vestige of knowledge of the ancient world, of Atlantis, of the mystery schools that the church had to get rid of, because that was its highest competitor. Gnosis, knowledge, sacred geometry, and the deeper fundamental principles of the world is a deeper knowledge than any kind of theology can throw at you. And so the church had to end her life because she's a threat. If people start listening to her, they ain't going to listen to theology. Any person who delves into deep spiritual wisdom from pre-9000 BC, you are delving into a spiritual psychology that will completely punt any religious idea that comes out of 300 AD. Punt it. Shut it down. And so that's what happened with Hypatia. And those mystery schools were then all taken underground, as you guys know. The masonry school was all taken over by the Luciferians. This all ties into the Cain story that I've already told you guys. And they came in and took over the ruling institutions of the society, be it religion, science, history, doesn't matter. They took over, buried the information. And so Hypatia was the initiation of that. She was the beginning of the church, basically outlawing and destroying anything that it deemed not Christian. This was the origin of Western religion. Hello, Vincent. It's good to see you, my friend. It's been a long time. It's good to see you, my brother. Okay. Bob, I love you, buddy. I don't know what that means. HWCN, the born again. I would love to know what that means. I don't know what that means, my friend. But I love you, my friend. Okay. What's in all caps today? This is a great conversation we're having today. I'm liking this. Yeah. Fanatics. You get someone to believe something hard enough, they'll become a fanatic. And at that point, you can't reach them. You can't reach them. They have to be shaken out of their stupor. That's the only way. And that's what the Great Awakening is. That's what the Great Awakening is all about. Okay. Yeah, we all love Bob. Bob's our buddy. Let's go to banners.
Here we go. So, what do we got? Okay. Well, I don't know what this one says, but let's just see what it says. If we reincarnate, then our DNA changes in every reincarnation. If we are in a time loop, it sounds like a lottery for when humanity wakes up. Was I more enlightened in a previous life? Boy, you got a lot of big questions here. Okay, so let's start off at the beginning. If we reincarnate, then our DNA changes in every reincarnation. Yeah, you'll be born into a unique body that has its own, shape, physicality, and all that stuff inside a culture. Obviously, your parents are going to be a part of some kind of culture, even if they live in a forest. That's a culture. It's the forest culture, and that will affect you. And that is a lottery. Yes, that is a lottery where you end up landing. And you could have possibly been more awakened in a previous life. It's a long go. It's a long go. And it's just like life. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You're going to have moments of real growth and striving, and you're going to have moments of real frustration and stagnancy. And that's the same way with your spirit. Your spirit is the same way. It's the exact same way. Great question. That's a great question. Okay. Okay, great question. Nice. Hi, Spiritual Ascension. Since you say, I'm assuming that's me, since I say all things are one, then clarify, is STO and STS the same? Are they one? Okay, well, they're one. But see, here's the catch, Spiritual Ascension, and this is really great. This is a great question. The catch is, well, I probably should keep it up. The catch is that oneness is your true identity. So follow now. What is motivating me to action? The spirit is. If the spirit leaves my body, what happens? The body dies. If the body dies, the heart starts working. What happens? The spirit leaves. So it's the spirit that must be in an alive body to recognize that identity, right? The true identity of an individual. Okay, now follow Spiritual Ascension. When I go outside and I walk in the forest and I look at the trees, now what is the tree being motivated? The tree is growing. What's motivating it to grow? Why? Why are all the cells doing their thing just like all the cells in my body are doing their thing? What motivates the cell? What's motivating these things to do their thing? Chance or spirit? Now, consider the earth. Okay, well, it's an organism. It's got an atmosphere. It responds to radiation, responds to light. It peoples, grows people, grows animals, trees, has vegetation, has a pressure, barometric pressure, right? It's an organism. Well, what's motivating that organism? What's motivating the earth? What's motivating all this stuff? What's motivating the sun to shine? What's motivating the galaxy to spin? Okay, all the same thing. All the same thing. So in the sense of identity, what is everything? Everything's the same. Everything's the same. It's the same identity. But each one of these identities has a costume. Some of them are dressed up in rock. Some of them are dressed up in bark. Some of these identities are dressed up in skin. Some of these are dressed up in clouds. Some of these motivations are tied into electricity and the conduct, the negative conduit that is the ground. The rhizosphere has its own motivating force below the plant. Where does that come from? Same thing. So STS and STO, very simply put, are costumes upon the same identity in all things. And that costume behaves in a unique way, and this brings about life. The galaxy, the planets, the star systems all behave in their own unique way. This creates life. That is life. The expressions of all these costumes are what constitute life. You have life
You have differentiation because of the costumes, but everything's the same identity. It's just every single identity is playing a different role. The corn stalks are playing the corn game. The human people are playing the human game. The atmosphere is playing the atmosphere game. The sun is playing the sun game. Do you see? The galaxy is playing the galaxy game. And so all of these costumes interplay and interact in the game, the games that they play. And your life, your existence is simply the playing out of your costume and all the costumes that surround you. And eventually you'll die. You'll leave this costume and you'll go to where no one can tell you. And then likely, the theory is that you come back. You enter another costume to have a different experience. And the role of Eastern wisdom is to do your best to prepare for that transition. That's the main central concern of Buddhism, is release from the material world to prepare for the transition after you die. And so, yes, the world is all one, and at the same time, it's completely differentiated. And this is part of the deeper spiritual awareness that's necessary to maintain peace, to realize love, to understand what motivates the world, what brings the world about. All of this would be part and parcel to the oneness of all things and understanding the role of costumes. What a fantastic question. Let's go to comments again, see if anybody's got anything here. Yeah, I based my nature series on a lot of his work. One of the things he talks about is the Bible being an allegory for astrology. Oh, absolutely. And so is tarot. Most of the ancient books, the I Ching, the Book of the Dead, these are all what are called allegorical books. They're not to render history in the sense of time or concretization. They're to render history as a metaphor so that you can then relate yourself through the metaphors of history, through the metaphors and relationships of people, events, energies that predate you. And so you can draw a tremendous amount through allegories and metaphor of symbols, pictures, animals, and so forth. Like my logo for this group is a tree with a gold circle in the center. The tree meaning nature, good and evil, the balance of nature, as above, so below. And the center point, which is the orienting point, which is the central identity of all things, is in the center of the tree. I got my, yeah, here, I can show you. Yeah, right here, you can see it, right? See? Okay, and so, whoop, it's upside down. So, yeah, okay. And so this symbol that I've made as the symbol for the nature creature it's metaphoric, it's allegorical. It tells another tale. It's not just a picture. There's meaning behind all this. And when you can relate through the meanings of the metaphor, you realize a deeper consciousness. And so what this is showing you is that the center point, the central identity of all things is God, the void, the unspeakable, right? And that's in the center of nature, which is balanced. As above, so below. And the 8 hermetic principles that go along with the principles of nature are all a part of this existence here. And then the black and white represents dualism and the warning, do not get caught in the natural world. Don't fall in love with it too much. You'll get caught into it, and that creates tension, that creates karma, that creates wakes. And you want to be just smoothly gliding along. You don't want to be creating an enormous wake as you traverse life. And so by not getting caught in dualism, you release from the anxieties that dualism causes, and therefore you release from the tension, the pressure that is being a spiritual being in a natural body. And so the goal of life is to not be tied into the dualism, but to escape it, to abandon, to release from the pleasantries, from the nuances of the dualistic world. Enjoy it, but don't be attached. And then you move into the experiential layer here, which is sacred geometry, which is what forms all of nature. And then these here are the epiphanies. And then these here are the mundane. The black squares are the mundane day, which is part of life. And then you have the epiphanies, which are these colored dots. And these are the moments of change and dramatic influence and understanding that occur in your life. And they're random, and they just happen unconventionally. And then you have the 5 principles of nature: water, fire, air, earth, and ether. Okay, and I won't go into all those. And then you have all the circles that represent the different multiverse that we're in, and the Platonic solid, which is sacred geometry, which is what builds the universe. Now, I show you all that to say, I show you that symbol to say, all the meaning, when you understand the meaning of that symbol, you see it's a contemplative exercise then. Because you start to place yourself, your events, your life, your understanding into the symbol. And you relate to these eternal symbols that are in that logo. You relate them metaphorically to your life. This connects you to nature. This connects you to the deeper energy. That's the role of metaphor. That's the role of the Greek pantheon of stories, of Zeus, Athena, the goddesses, all these things. The lords and ladies and kings and queens of King Arthur's table. These are metaphors. The characters and the animals and the people and the clothing and costumes that are in the tarot are metaphors for your life, are metaphors for your emotional content. That's the purpose of tarot, is for you to see in metaphor the emotions of your life there in the tarot. And by meditating on that and realizing these scenes, how they relate to you, you deepen your psychology because you deepen your self-awareness. The more self-aware I become, the more I empower my existence, the more I realize and understand my potential. This all comes through metaphor. And Santos Bonacci is very good at relating ancient metaphors to the individual's life. And when you do that consistently in your life, relating metaphors and symbols to your life, you see, you deepen your world. You bring tangibility to the intangible. You realize that which can't be realized otherwise. And this is beautiful. This feeds you. Because we're spiritual creatures. And mythology, astrology, allegory is all spiritual food. Isn't that amazing? And so, yeah, it's talked about how the disciples in the Bible are the 12 houses in the astrological world. And, you know, you can relate all of that. Astrology comes out of the natural world of tribalism. And each of those figures that are in the astrological pictures represent seasons, changes, the impossibilities that are and create life. And by studying those houses of allegory and metaphor that are in astrology, you bring a semblance into your own life. You bring an understanding into your life psychically that grounds you. That's anti-anxiety. That is anti-hate. That is connecting. That's pure love. And this is why when you study these ancient mythologies and these ancient teachings, you realize your identity and you find fulfillment. And that's what it's about. So frequency healing is a big deal. Hey, Bob. So I don't know all these initials that you got, but I will tell you that frequency healing is the basis of, in my opinion, the coming med beds, and that they're going to change the entire pharmacological and medical world completely. It's my opinion that doctors, as Elon Musk says, that doctors are going to become irrelevant in 3 to 5 years. And that's because we're moving into a quantum knowledge, gnosis, awareness situation. And so technologies frequencies, metaphors, and allegory are all going to intensify over the coming years. And so frequency healing is enormous, especially with meditation, the different frequency bowls that you can use, the acupuncture that you can use coinciding with frequency healing. Don't necessarily have to have a medical bed. You can engage in healing frequencies and healing rituals on your own. And absolutely it works. Absolutely it's part and parcel to healing the body. And frequency work, energy work is essential to ever healing from any disease. I don't care if it's cancer or the common cold. Frequency is key, a key operating factor in all of that. Yes, terahertz technology, absolutely, 100%. 432, you got it. See, my chat room are with it people. They're with it people, man. My chat room, there's no flies on my chat room, not at all. Yeah, yeah, those are real. Those frequencies are real. They heal you. Bye, Catlin. Bye, Catlin. We'll see you later. Yeah, tuning forks, exactly. Okay, let's go to banners. Let's find another meaty question here. Let's go. So, okay. This is interesting here. Hi, rulers. Chuck, do you think the STS aliens tried you with that disease to take your loosh? I think challenge is part and parcel to a person who wants to grow. My wife and I engaged in a ritual. Let's see, it was I think in like 2007. It was a Dakini witch ritual, and I communicated to the void that I wanted to give my life to nature. Jenny communicated the same thing, and the ritual was to establish and to set up an energy center point from which Jen and I would launch into the world of nature and integrating into the natural world and natural healing. This was before I had cancer. And then it was a few years later that I contracted the disease. And it very well may be that I called the disease because I wanted to grow. My communicating to nature that I wanted to be a part of the natural world and to grow and learn. Well, how are you going to learn? You know, and I was a pretty hardcore Christian at the time. And so how are you going to engage in the learning process if you're already stuck in a place where you think you know? You know, because the Christian, the Islamist, the Jew, they think they know. They think they got the spiritual world figured out. They got the right God. You know, they got the right morals and laws and all that kind of stuff. And so how does the natural world break you out of that? Pain. Pain is the greatest teacher. And so when I communicated to nature, look, I want to grow. I want to give myself to nature, and I want to become essentially a nature creature. Nature's like, okay. If that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. And it wasn't too much longer that I contracted cancer, and cancer became the greatest teacher of my life. Cancer, for me, was the greatest teacher of my life. Taught me more about life and myself than any religion did, than any book, than any person, individual, any movie I saw. Cancer was the deepest sage that I ever engaged. And so I don't see, this is a long way to answer your question, rulers, though, but I don't see my cancer as a negative event. How about them apples? You know, how wild is that? I see it as a learning tool. It was very costly, very costly. But I'm a more aware person now than I was before I had cancer. So cancer was a gift. It was a gift from nature. Albeit it had death tied directly to it. It was ready to kill me. It was the real thing. It was trying to kill me. But sometimes those that harm you become some of your greatest teachers, and they show you those and that which harms you. These things show you a deeper side of life, a different side of life that you couldn't have accessed without their attempted harm on you. So I don't think it was a loosh thing as much as it was I initiated the course of nature, which is hard. The course the course of nature is devastating. It's extremely draining, because nature attacks on all fronts, and it doesn't have any apology about its behavior. And nature doesn't have any remorse. So be careful. In other words, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. But no, I don't think it was a loosh thing. I think it was a growth thing. Okay, let's go back to comments, see if you guys got any questions. Yeah, that's legit. Red light therapy is legit. Nice. Okay, you guys don't got any questions. Let's go. Let's keep going. Oh, do ya? Yeah, happy to tell you. Yeah, Jenny and I have an interesting history, that's for sure, when it comes to religion and how all that has played out in our lives. Let's go to banners to see if you guys got any questions. No, I'm not, Bo. Stoicism is the, if I understand correctly, is the belief that you're the only existence, that everything is only in the mind. So it lines up pretty nicely in a lot of ways with the way I teach. But it's the Stoicism folks, they think that the entire world and everything doesn't exist, in the sense of that they're the only singular existence, and that the world is brought about through themselves as an individual. So it really ties in really nicely in some ways to Buddhism, and in other ways to the idea of the world being an illusion, and the world only exists in your mind, and your mind doesn't exist. And so Stoicism taps into that same kind of idea. But it takes it, in my opinion, a bit too far. I don't think, and this, I could be totally wrong here, Bo, but I don't think that I or someone else is the only thing that exists. I do think that all of these things coincide in the energy realms. Now, certainly, the world as you see it, the world as you understand it, is illusory. I get that. And I understand the double slit test, and that the world collapses into the world that you believe it to be. I get that too. I just think that Stoicism it's too reductionistic. You're removing too many variables and assuming them into this idea of, man, everything's just in imagination, everything's just in your head, nothing exists. To me, it's taking it too far. It's making the world of illusion walk on all fours. And I think that stepping back a little bit and leaving more of an open door to, I'm not the only one existing. There is more complication to the universe than the way that I've imagined it. Kind of helps you have a larger world to stand in, and therefore potential for a larger perspective to gather. So that's my thoughts. But nothing wrong with Stoicism. If that's the road you want to go down, man, go for it. Go for it. I'm not a dude that believes in any one way, one belief, one understand. I don't buy into any of that. So if Stoicism floats your boat, go for it. There's no rules. There's no rules when it comes to spirituality. There's no rules. The rules can't exist. There's no form to exist in the world of spirituality. So what you're arguing about? You know what I'm saying? That's the concept. Okay. What's going on, Fortune? Chuck, do you think dementia could possibly be a memory wipe and a revisit to what the soul once was, but in the wrong body lifetime? Curious question. Love you lots. I think dementia is a tragedy, and I think that it's a offspring of not only the pharma and the way medicine runs these days, but it's a tragedy in that you die not remember anything. I mean, I've met a number of family members who had a parent that died with it, and the tragedy was that as they were dying, that person, that dear individual, hardly knew anyone else that was in the room. To me, that's tragic. And I think that has been something that has been put into life through our manipulation, through bad pharma. And to me, it really is tragic in what it does to a person's
life. And I gotta tell you, one of the things I wonder is what kind of after-death experience will that person have? Because they've lost memory of all these voices and people and events and so forth are gone. Does that come back?
I think it may. And I think you tie into the Akashic field, and I think pretty quickly, once you leave this body and its dysfunction, you access to the Akashic fields and larger fields of experience and existence. And so it likely all comes back. But I think that situation is extremely tragic. Okay. Could possibly. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just answered that. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And did you know, this is really interesting, I read the other day, that they used to have at hospitals, everybody went up to the roof every day for sun healing, for sunbathing. They would haul the patients up for, a few minutes to be on the top of the building, obviously when it was sunny, to encourage sun healing and getting people out into the open. Did I get it wrong? I might have. Solipsism, stoicism. Yeah, I might have mixed those two up. Yeah, I might have mixed those two up. My apologies. My apologies. Yeah, you are exactly right. Anti-involution. You're exactly right. I like that, Bill. I like that, Bill. That's a good one because I'm a big pragmatist. I love pragmatism. Yeah, I love practical speaking, practical matters. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. My bad. Sorry, Gail. You're right. You're right. You're exactly right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. No, it'd be horrible. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Interesting. Interesting, yeah. I my approach in philosophy is just extremely practical. Can you render the metaphor, the allegory, the situation in such a way that it just applies on the psychological level of the human being? Because essentially we're psychological beings in many ways. And it's your psychology that is all intertwined with these philosophical ideas and principles. And so I try to focus on a philosophy that is very basic, simple, practical, easy to understand, and conceptualize. And then you can grow obviously out from that. But I like the practical, pragmatic approach of the everyday Joe that is like me, that isn't properly educated and doesn't have the degrees and all that kind of stuff. How do we orient an individual like that to a very deep sense of understanding of identity and an understanding of the world without super complex philosophical notions? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with super complex. Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm just saying that when it comes to my philosophy and how I approach things, I like to just basic pragmatism, basic realization at the ground level in the space you're in right now without having to have some kind of major special education to figure it out. And so sometimes I definitely would screw up stoicism um, and confuse people, and that isn't helpful, and I'm sorry. And solipsism. Solipsism. Yeah. Yeah. Ricky, we have the best chat on YouTube. I put it up against anybody's YouTube chat. Our YouTube chat is awesome. We have wonderful, tolerant people in the group, people who are aware, people who want to help others and have a good spirit. Absolutely. Are we good? We got about 15 minutes left before our time is over. Actually, we're supposed to end at 5:30, but that's okay. We're going to go to 6 tonight. Okay. No, I believe that there's a giant race, and the Cassiopaeans talk about them. I can't remember the planet they're from, but they're not so smart. The giants are kind of goofy, and when it came to ruling humans, which are pretty sharp, people are pretty quick. Like people who are awake, they're pretty quick. They can see through BS. And apparently, the giants that they tried to use to rule over humanity were idiots. And so that didn't work out, but some of their old structures are still here. And yes, I do think those are real, and I do think they were built for giants. Okay. What is this here at Fortune? Chuck, do you believe the Anunnaki are equal to the Elohim? I think they're one and the same. El, Saturn. Yeah, El is a god out of Saturnism or Saturna. What is it? Saturnalia. The Saturnalians. That's it. El is a god, a Canaanite god. The Elohim ties into those Canaanite gods, and I believe that all of these are basically would fall under the Watchers. El wouldn't, unless El was one of the Watchers, could have been. But I think those are all referring back to the quote unquote fallen angels, which would be the STO, the 4D, sorry, not STO, STS, the 4D STS. Elohim, Anunnaki would all fall into that same space. So they would be, yeah, they'd be the kind of the same thing, in my opinion. Okay. This. Hi, Eldana. Chuck, what are your thoughts regarding the upcoming ellipse and other dates people are talking about regarding shifts and things? I'm just doing life in the meantime as STO. Right on, love. These are all part and parcel of the experience of this planet. This planet has had all kinds of anomalies like that, and both tragedies and beautiful events and so forth that are part and parcel of it. Eclipses fall into that. And these are all part of the ritual that is the human life, the human experience, the way the natural world works. And so inevitably, you're going to have a number of high energy dates that are going to coincide with high energy events in your life. And oftentimes, astrology can point to that. And so in our past, this was very well understood and read. And to this day, let me tell you something. When I have practiced in astrology or tarot, it has been so accurate, it has freaked me out. And one of the reasons why I don't engage in that stuff very much anymore is because it clues you in as to what is happening, or I should say, what is going to happen. And I'm the kind of person, I don't like to know that. I like to live spontaneously. I like to wake up every day without having or without thinking, well, today is a particular day in the astrological chart, so these things are kind of or most likely to happen today, and I'm most likely going to be having this kind of experience. I don't like putting that kind of precondition on my day. I don't like having a precondition on knowing like what's the energy supposed to be according to the tarot chart. I would rather go into the day and find out in the day in that moment. Because if I preempt the day with ideas that I am reading into the future for, that preloads the day with assumption, and I don't want to, or I don't like to do that. I like to be completely free when it comes to the day. And so I just found that it was so accurate, that stuff was so accurate that it was tainting my ability to approach the day spontaneously, because I know the type of energy that it's pointing to, and 9 times out of 10 it's right. And so I'm preloading, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to preload the day with expectation, because expectations are I really am not a I don't like expectations. I don't like it when people have expectation on me, and I certainly don't put expectations on others. And you can ask my nature team, my nature creature team. I don't put any expectation on them, because I think expectation harms people. And so yeah, I don't follow the tarot, and I don't follow astrology, not because they don't work, but because they work so well. and I just want a bit more variety. I don't or spontaneity in my life. That's an interesting thought. Hi, Juliana. Hi, Chuck. Have you ever heard this theory that pigs are actually cursed humans, and the reason we couldn't attain ultimate knowledge is that we were essentially eating people? No, but I do think that there are probably many animals in the animal kingdom that are genetic hybrids of some kind. I don't think every animal in the animal kingdom is natural. I believe that probably some of them have been genetically altered. I think that's a lot of what was going on in the dinosaur age. People tend to forget that we're on a loosh farm that's been around for millions of years, and we're kind of the newcomers. Long before us, though, they were organizing ways and means to generate loosh on this planet. And in my opinion, the dinosaurs were an experiment or an experience of trying to generate more and more loosh by creating more and more devastating species. And so in the later portion of the dinosaur age, you're seeing more and more monster-like creatures that are coming forward. And in my opinion, I think they're genetic alterations they're doing on these creatures to create more war and battle between these 2D creatures, to create more anxiety between the small creatures and the large creatures, to create anxiety in the large creatures and hunger and always having to go out and kill and find meals. And so you're driving loosh. You're creating a more and more warlike, vicious society of dinosaurs. And so I think that has been going on a long time. And I do think that we are still being genetically manipulated in the bases and all that kind of stuff. And I think that will stop. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that pigs are formerly us or we're formerly pigs. I wouldn't go that far as labeling the costumes. But as far as animating and oneness, yeah, there's no difference between us, pigs, animals, trees, grass, sky, any of that stuff. I think you're up to Mark Passio. that would be interesting to have a conversation with Mark Passio. I don't know how to have a conversation with Mark Passio without that dude lighting it up. He's a pretty strong guy. And he can say things that are pretty rough, but it's a thought. It's definitely an idea, anti-involution. I don't know, maybe Mark has mellowed out a little bit since I last watched him. I'm not so sure that the crowd that hangs out here would dig him. But I love Mark. I love Passio. He's given me some of my best understandings of the world. It would be an interesting interview. I'll give you that. It would definitely be an interesting interview. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, pig tastes good. I love pig. Pig tastes delicious. Yeah, it's absolutely delicious. Yeah, we do that by raising our energy. Okay, let's go back to banners. Okay. Okay, we just read that. Okay. Why do I think we get lack of awareness, lack of perspective? One of the best ways to get depressed is to have a small perspective, because that's just a small world, a small perspective of the events that are happening. When you widen your perspective, you can see the deeper truth in all things, and that's anti-depression. When you can see the deeper sense in others and in yourself and in the events of the world eventually becomes a daily epiphany. Like every day you have such radical experiences that there's not time or room for depression. You're just trying to realize all that is available right now. And so getting too much in the head will often cause depression. Playing those tapes, I mean, I did that for years. Playing those tapes over and over and over again, I did that for years, for absolute years. And it's a dead-end road. But that was one of the ways that I got over depression. It's depression has challenged me this week a little bit with the situation that I'm in with the family, a family member, and it's been interesting, as this is probably the third most painful thing
I've ever had to endure. And so depression, I feel, is right there waiting for me. I'm not depressed at this point. I don't have depression now. But I can feel it attempting. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just keep a very wide and large perspective of what is happening. Because if I focus in on the pain and torture of what's going on at like, you know, the moment to moment type of situation, it's madness. It's too painful. So I have to see a larger perspective, work to see a larger perspective, try, attempt, uh, be in a larger perspective, and that is the anti-depressed position. And so I've found, Gretchen, the best way to fight depression is consciousness expansion, personally, because I used to suffer with incredible depression. Questions? You good? Are we good with comments? Let's look at the comments. Okay. Yeah. What's really great about the chat room, Gail, is that there's a diversity there and a tolerance. Now, this is key. One of the reasons why our chat room is so good is that we have a wide variety of opinions, but we have a very tolerant group. So people in this group, from what I can tell, are open to hearing a dissenting opinion of their own without like getting all angry and everything. People realize in the chat, hey, my opinion isn't final. Their opinion isn't final. No one can have the final opinion. So we're all just going to talk about it. We're all going to talk about it. And yeah, we're going to say some heretical things. Yeah. We're going to say some things that aren't mainstream. Yeah. But we are just talking as you're experiencing. We're just talking and expressing, hey, this is where I land. Where do you land? And that's healthy. That's healthy. The last thing you want is everybody talking in an echo chamber like what happens at church and everybody's just saying what they want to hear. And, there's no growth there. There's growth found in tolerating dissenting opinions and changing ideals and being able to stand in that space with the change and being completely fine with it. And we do that here. It's a sign of maturity. That's another thing that I also discovered on the trip this last week. The shindig was the level of spiritual maturity in the group. That was wild. Because it was so good. The spiritual maturity of the group was outstanding, and that was one of the big reasons why there was no fighting, there was no like arguing or yelling or differences or anything like that brought about anger. Everyone sharing what they've discovered and what they have realized in their own life, and that's beautiful. And that's in our chat. My health is okay. I am getting over a long form cough that I had for about 3 weeks. It's just now going away. So good. It happens every once in a while. That would be very interesting. It would definitely be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Chunkaholics Anonymous. I like that, John. Thank you for that, buddy. Thank you for that. Yeah, he is. He is. He is. He does great work. You guys are funny. Thank you, Gretchen. I appreciate that, love. I appreciate that. We will get through it. We will get through it. We will get through it. Yeah, exactly. Nailed it, King. Exactly. Got it. The nonplussed lady right there, Miss Fortune. Miss Nonplussed. Absolutely. Love it. Here. I Twisted Pixie agree. I am most depressed after extended periods of time with no human interaction, too much my own head. Yeah, and what's really interesting, Twisted Pixie, is what Jen and I are going through right now with the family. I have found that I really look forward to my interaction with you guys here live. There's something about just talking to another human being and seeing another human being and just interacting at that level that's therapeutic. And right now I'm really fighting, not fighting, I'm really facing it. And so the therapy that's available by just being around you guys
it's extremely helpful to me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you, Twisted Pixie. Well, I'm not sure that an egregore can be considered positive, because an egregore is to believe a lie and enable an act and give that lie life by believing it and following it. And so the egregore only exists when you believe in the lie and then carry out that lie. And so I don't see a whole lot of positivity in the egregore. The egregore is a mindset. It's a mind cage. There's not a whole lot of positivity to be found there. But the joy is escaping the egregore. Now that's a positive thing. Definitely escaping the egregore would be a good thing. Yeah. Yep. Because the church's answer for depression is to pray more, to get accountability partners or partners meeting with a group, read the Bible more, do more church events, go to more Bible studies, have more Christian friends. It is all within the same mindset that gave you the depression. So if you want to leave depression, you must leave the mindset that brought you to the space of depression. And that means abandoning the belief systems that you've always believed in that are bringing you to depression. You have to think differently. And by staying in the same belief, the same religion, you're not changing. You're not changing. And in order to defeat the depression, in order to overcome it, you have to change your environment. You have to change the way you're thinking. You have to widen your perspective, which will change the way that you're thinking. And you have to risk. You have to risk, because thinking differently is to risk thinking differently, right? And the scary thing is, you start thinking too differently, eventually you're not going to have the same friends. Your family's not going to be able to relate to you. You may not even be able to keep your job. Do you see? And so widening your perspective to cure depression can also have another effect, in that, you might find that you've lost relationships that you've had for 45 years because you're thinking differently. And typically the last thing a fanatic or a religious person wants is different kinds of spiritual thinking. They're not into that. They have one God, one Bible, one way, one belief system. Follow? And of course, if you find yourself depressed in that singularity, for lack of a better term, in that singularity, you can understand then why many people have to leave religion to cure their depression. They have to leave the church, they have to leave all they believe to cure their depression, because it was believing all that stuff which was generating the field that caused depression. One of the things I learned when I had cancer was, or that my naturopathic taught me was, Chuck, you're going to have to leave the environment that made you sick, that contributed to your sickness. If you don't change the very environment that was the milieu that made you sick, how much healing can take place? Seriously. Right? So if you've been depressed, let's say a person like you, Miss Redhead, was depressed for 45 years, you can see then how, until they change their quote unquote mental location, where the space that they mentally land, to literally stand up, leave, and close the door behind you. To me, that's the stepping stone. That's the gateway to your antidepressive state, because you're leaving the space that made you sick. And it's the same thing with cancer. Got to leave the space that made me sick, that contributed to my sickness. And until I leave that space, guess what? Ain't nothing going to change. Ain't nothing going to change. All right, we got to wrap it up. Last question. What are we going to do? Right on, Twisted Pixie. Glad to hear it. Any final questions before we go? Before we wrap it up? And I'll play the prelude postlude so that you guys can sit and chat if you'd wish after this is over. I'm going to look. I'm right at where Fortune says same sick behaviors for all. And King Gerbo has said, like smart, realizing you are never really alone is my best 100%. Yes.
Yeah, everything is one. Very good. Very, very good insight there, Hyverbal. Thank you for that. You're welcome, Fortune. Of course, love. Yeah, love you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. It's been a good chat. I've enjoyed today. It's been really nice. Very, very therapeutic. It's gotten my mind off of some tough things I'm dealing with right now. And I have the encouragement of my friends, which makes me feel good. And I've received a letter this week. I'm going to have to change the number on the sign. I've already got my production done for Saturday, so it won't be for the Saturday. But I got a letter that brought us to number 23. So I'll do that next week. And we'll honor this gentleman. I have his letter, and I will post it to you guys so you can see it. It is unbelievable. I love you guys. I look forward to seeing you next time. I'll go ahead and play the Prelude Postlude, and then we'll be out of here. I'll see you. Let's see. So that what's happening now? I'll see you guys Saturday. I'll be back on at 5 o'clock on Saturday, and then Zoom. Don't forget, Zoom is at 11 o'clock Sunday for the next month because of the situation that's going on in the family. So for the next month, Zoom is at 11 a.m. Pacific time. 11 a.m. Pacific time in the normal channels. So I'll look forward to seeing you guys at Zoom, and then obviously we'll do this again next week at 4. It's been a great day. I've really enjoyed the relaxing day today we've had, and a good discussion. We've discussed some really good things. This is fantastic. I love it. Okay, here's the Prelude Postlude, and I will see you guys Saturday. There we go. You're welcome, Nancy. I love you, baby.